Welcome back to the Attack the Rack podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest. Today joining the program is basketball coach Steve Windemuller. This is a guest I was hopefully looking forward to having ever since I started the podcast, and today is the day. Coach Windemuller retired after the 2021-2022 season. I am a huge Coach Windemuller fan. When I played at Holland High School way back in the mid to late 90s, he was our assistant coach. And after all these years, we still see each other quite often and talk quite frequently. He has certainly been a coaching mentor for me. He coached 36 seasons and has been probably one of the, if not the most successful coach we've seen here on the Lakeshore in West Michigan. Coach Windemuller has 4 conference championships as a head coach, 3 more as an assistant coach. He also has 5 district championships, 2 more as an assistant coach. Also as a head coach, he has a regional championship and a state runner-up. This is going to be a good one. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Attack the Rack podcast. I am your host, Curt Van Hecken, and you are tuning in to the #1 rated podcast on the planet, based on the people that rated it #1. The Attack the Rack podcast is brought to you by Get to 2 Media. Hey, Attack the Rack fans, do you ever have a situation where you want to build something, but you feel like something important is missing? Maybe an important item you need to build what you want to build? Well, I have a product for you. The program today is sponsored by an incredible product, and that product is wood. Wood is essential when building things such as houses and many other things. The possibilities are endless. I only endorse products that I use. I use wood, and I recommend you do as well. All right, we are here today with Coach Steve Windemuller. Coach Windemuller coached high school basketball in West Michigan for 36 years. He recently retired after the 2021-2022 season. Coach Windemuller, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And how has the high school basketball season is winding down here with the semifinals and state finals this weekend here in Michigan? You've now completed 1 full year without coaching. How did that year go for you?
I didn't know January was such a long month, but it wasn't too bad. Definitely missed some parts of it, but some parts I didn't miss as much, and but I got to fill my time with went back and watched some West Ottawa games and got to watch the guys that I had last year as juniors play as seniors this year. So that was got to watch about 4 to 6 games of theirs, and then with Trent coaching at Holland, I got to go watch quite a few Holland, go back to the Dome, and got to watch a bunch of Holland games. So I got to watch Trent and Mason coach at Holland, and so that was enjoyable too. So I got to kind of fill my basketball needs with some of watching Holland and West Ottawa both play. And then I have a couple coaching friends, obviously, in the business that we stay in touch with on a regular basis. So there was some advice once in a while and that type of thing. And we have Hope season tickets, so we go to Hope games too. So got plenty of basketball in this winter anyway.
Yeah, and you mentioned going to watch Holland play. Your son Trent is an assistant coach at Holland. Trent was a guest on the podcast a couple months ago. I will post a link to that podcast in the description for this one, so if anyone wants to check that one out as well, you may. This is a fun one for me today. Definitely when I started this and started interviewing coaches, Coach Windemuller is someone that I was really wanting to get on the program. Coach Windemuller and I go way back. My freshman year of high school, Coach Windemuller came to Holland High School as an assistant coach, and then 2 years later, when I was on the varsity team, obviously was the assistant coach. And I had a lot of fun playing on those 2 years. I wasn't someone who, got very much playing time, but I love being a part of it, and had a lot of fun in practice. I don't know if you remember this, but I was always on the scout team, and I think we usually only had maybe four bodies, the kind of the bottom four guys on the team were the scout team, and then you would step in and be our fifth. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. And then when I got into coaching, the first coaching job I had was at one of the Holland middle schools. You were the varsity head coach at that time. And, we pretty much have stayed in touch ever since.
Right.
See each other quite often, talk a lot. Definitely a coaching mentor of mine. So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun for me. Obviously, you're known for basketball. When you were growing up, was basketball your thing? Did you play any other sports?
Nope, basketball was my thing.
Basketball.
It was just a passion of mine for some odd reason. The weirdest part, the things you can remember in the day is that you tried out for 7th grade basketball, and if you could make a left-hand layup, and if you can make a right-hand layup, and you can maybe shoot the ball all right, you're probably going to make the team. And then so you try out, and then there's all kinds of guys that try out, probably 30, 40 guys that try out, and then the coach doesn't stick around and talk to you like we do nowadays.
Right.
But what they did is they just posted a list outside the locker room, and if you're on the list, and I think I was on the list because my last name was a W, and I was at the bottom in that alphabetical order, but I probably was at the bottom because I wasn't very good either. So, but so there's some things there that you remember, but it was one of those things where I played a lot. I practiced out in the driveway all the time. I remember shoveling snow, like everybody says, they shovel snow, go shoot with your gloves on. You did all that stuff as a high school player. I wasn't great. I didn't get a lot of playing time as a junior, and then when I became a senior, I spent a lot of time in the gym. Got up in the morning and I went to shoot with my head coach. Coach Bruce Harris was my head coach at the time, and he brought me in every morning since he was a teacher, and he brought me in every morning. We shot for an hour before school started, and then by the time my senior season came, I really had a pretty good senior season, and we were pretty successful at the time. I think it was one of West Ottawa's best seasons. It was like we were 13-7 maybe, I think, in that range, and didn't win anything to speak of as far as a district or a conference championship, but it was one of the for a while there. West Ottawa's had some rough times as far as trying to have a winning season, so that was one of the better years that they've had in a while until the past 4 or 5 years ago. So, but we always did that. We lived on a farm, raised harness horses. So we did the fair circuit, and we trained harness horses, and we did that because my dad and my grandpa got into that, and so I was part of that. I was on the sulky horses. I did that as a young kid, and did that growing up too. Nice. But basketball was was the main thing. Yeah.
And then when did you kind of realize, back then when you were playing, was coaching something you had on your radar of maybe doing someday?
Yeah, I remember I had Coach Harris as a expository writing teacher, and I wrote a paper about being a head coach someday. So that was kind of a passion of mine. But I don't know, after you do your trials of college and getting through college and trying to pass classes and doing all that stuff in college and trying to get a degree and then trying to get into the business world. Yeah. It was one of those things where you kind of the door just kind of opened for you, and you kind of thought, oh yeah, I could probably do that, So it was my JV coach was Coach Paul Osborne, and he was very helpful and very thoughtful, and needed a freshman coach at the time, so at West Ottawa, so I became the freshman coach. The funny part about after that was Coach Anise from the Fair State football coach. Yep. Coach Anise was the JV coach, and then Coach Osborne was the varsity coach at that time when he took over the varsity job. So Coach Oz was a varsity coach, and Coach Anise was a JV coach, and we've, Coach Oz has just recently passed, but Coach Anise and I and our wives stay in touch and play golf all summer, and and we have a good time, and we still stay in touch a lot. So we're still friends.
Nice. And then, so how long did you coach freshman basketball then? This is at West Ottawa. This is
Ooh,
what
yeah.
year are we talking about here?
I don't know.
Late
I mean,
80s?
85,
Okay.
85 area probably. Spent a few years trying to get through college, and then
Yep.
then started coach freshman basketball probably 4 or 5 years
Oh, okay.
possibly. Coach Anise ended up, his passion obviously was coaching football. So Coach Anise moved on, and he went on to go to a different school to coach football. I think he went to Montrose. And then I moved into the JV job, and I coached JVs for probably 4 or 5 years there. I think I was at West Ottawa in that stint about 9 years. So between freshmen and JVs, I coached freshman JVs for 9 years, as long as Coach Osborne was still the coach. And then Coach Osborne stepped down, and then the interview process came, and that was my first thought of becoming a varsity coach. But I was just a freshman JV coach, and I wasn't able to get that job, and then at that time, and then they hired Coach Chapman.
Yes.
So Coach Paul Chapman ended up taking coming here from Ohio, and he became the head coach. So then I stayed one more year and coached with Coach Chapman for 1 year. I coached JVs with Coach Chapman for 1 year.
All right, and then
the move.
And then the move from the north side to the south side. I think that would have been 94, 95 season. Coach Mark Worley gets the head job at Holland High School and takes you on as his varsity assistant. How did that come about?
That came about because it was Coach Worley was out of coaching at that time also. So at that time, and I was still coaching. So Coach Worley was very gracious a few days, and he came to West Ottawa, and we ran some transition drills, and we did some stuff, and put the original transition that I still run. We put that in, him and I, and so he kind of helped me. Chad came over and helped me put the transition stuff in. So we got that going, and then as soon as the change came, and then Coach Worley took the head job at Holland. Him and I have been friends for a number of years. Played softball together. All the teachers used to get together on Sunday afternoon and play basketball. We used to all play basketball. We used to play in Mackers. So we've known each other for a long time, and so he took the job there at Holland, and then he asked if I wanted to come over and be his assistant. And so I decided that was going to be a good move, and I've always enjoyed working with Coach Worley, and he's got a great basketball mind, and so it was a perfect situation at that time. So
yeah, and you guys walked into a kind of if I remember correctly, I was kind of coming up at that time. The Holland team the year prior was a very, very good team. They went to the quarterfinals, lost to Flint Northern, featuring Mateen Cleaves and Antonio Smith and Robert Smith. So you guys kind of came into this in this time where Holland just had a really good team, graduated a bunch of seniors. I don't know. Do you remember back then what you guys were kind of thinking it would kind of look like?
I don't know if I can recall exactly what we were exactly thinking. I think obviously we're both pretty excited about doing what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And having, and I think Coach Worley was excited about finally having his own, being the head coach and having his own program. We were, like anything else, you're young and you're learning, and we've went to a couple clinics. I remember some clinics that, some things in some places. We went to Kentucky, and we went to Indiana, and we've gone to a number of college clinics and stuff like that, and sat through some things and kind of decided what we liked and what we didn't like and how we liked to do things. But we were both, really true motion offense type guys, so we knew offensively what we were going to do, not knowing, he knew some of the guys, obviously, since he was a teacher in the phys ed area. He probably knew some of the guys better or what was coming, but I had no clue, but we got in there, and there was, it was a different new regime. It was different guys, different kind of style than what they previously had. So we had to try to make our way and try to try to build a program, and try to build it the way Coach Worley wanted to build it. So it was good. We end up kind of coming into after a few years there, we kind of built a built-in rivalry with Rockford, and that's when they were really strong too, and so it was them, and obviously Jenison was strong at that time too. So it was a pretty competitive league, and it was some really good basketball at that time.
Yeah. Back then, Holland was in the OK Red. And you and I were texting a little bit this week trying to prep for this, and we were trying to think back, conference championships, district championships. Back then, it's hard to remember what year was what. And when I was reaching out to some of the former players back then as well to try to sort that all out. And one of your former players, he would have been on the first two teams there. He would have been a junior your first year, senior your second year. Mr. Derek Wolf, he confirmed that district championships both those first 2 years. So that would have been 94, 95.
I remember the year we won one at West Ottawa. That was that was absolutely nuts. That was exciting. Grand Haven was the one that was supposed to win They were really supposed to be the one to win the district, and they end up not winning the game that they were supposed to win to get to play us, and we end up playing. I think we played Zeeland. Played Zeeland. Yeah. And man, that place was bedlam.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that.
It was Martin Eball Gymnasium. Yeah. It was. You remember that? You get the goosebumps. I still get goosebumps thinking about that. But it was. It was a crazy night. That was. That was so much fun. That was. And they were. I mean, we ran our 11 defense, and boy, those. You talk about some guys. You talk about Derek Wolf and talk about John Brown, and man, those dudes could play the top of that zone, and they were relentless. And then you had Paul Skipper in there, and they were. And you had I don't think who else was in that group.
Ryan Klingler
was in
Joe
there.
Dallard.
Joe Dallard, geez. Yeah. So man, you got those dudes, and they can all play. They can all score it. They were a nice group. They were a real strong group. You bet.
Yeah. So Derek Wolf did confirm district championships those 2 years, and then his senior year, which would have been year 2 for you guys, 95, 96. You did also win conference championship, co-conference championship with the Wildcats. Yep. One thing I got to show you here from Derek Wolf, he sent me a clip. He wanted me to remind you of this special moment in his life, special moment in the history of Holland basketball.
Let's take a peek. This is gonna be...
If you guys are just kind of listening right now, you're going to want to put your eyes on your screen, because I will also show the video in the podcast. Here we go. This would have been his senior year, 95, 96.
Was this at cleanup time?
Yeah, this is right at the end of the game. I think. Yeah, I think it was at the buzzer here.
They're pressing us in cleanup time. Oh my. I didn't know he could jump like that.
Oh yeah,
he could do that. I don't want to bash him. He's good. He's a good dude. So.
Oh yeah, great guy. Big supporter of Holland basketball, Holland athletics.
You betcha.
So hey, so you were assistant coach at Holland with Coach Worley for.
Oh gosh, as long as he was there. So his tenure, probably 9. He was there about 9, 10, maybe 9 years, probably something like that.
Yeah, and then you stepped into the head role.
Well, I did. Well, I did almost 2 head roles. So I mean,
you did the girls too.
I did the girls. Coach Worley did the girls, and when they were really good.
Yep.
Bria Ebels and the Scott girls, and so they were good, and then I decided to be a head coach. I wanted to be a head coach and get some head coaching experience. So I took the girls' job.
Yep.
And then I took that girls' job for 2 years. But the 1 year, that was when the seasons changed. So the 1 year was really kind of a crazy year, because I think my first year with boys, the girls. Well, I think it was the girls were in the fall, the boys were in the winter. So then it was pretty easy. But then when the girls and the boys were going to flip, I had to decide what I was going to do, and I took the boys' job.
Okay.
And then, so I remember at one time, the girls, we had to go to Benton Harbor and play the girls' district game, and I did cuts right before that when we had to do cuts for the boys. And then they had to come back, and the girls' season ended that night, and then the boys, it started the next night. So, but
Oh, that's crazy.
yeah, but the first team, you always remember some of the first things. I mean, the first team I had at Holland was Johnny Rodriguez and
Okay.
Tyler DeLuce and Colin Dupree and some of those guys, and they made it so much. I mean, to say the first year of RC coach, I mean, they made it so much easier for me, because they weren't. I think if I remember back a little bit, I mean, because Coach Worley went to Zealand West, I think, to be athletic director, and those guys just, it's one of those things where they just weren't happy he left and felt that they had something to prove,
Yeah.
which was really cool. And I think we ended up winning maybe 13, 14 games, but that was a really solid season because everybody thought it was going to be the demise of Holland basketball, was kind of going to take a nosedive after Coach Worley left. So those guys, to their credit, they put together a solid season. They were really good, and they were fun to coach, and great personalities and stuff like that. So you really remember the finer points of that type of thing. So it was a great season. It was a good way for me to start. It was much easier for me to start that way than it probably is for Mason this year to start with Mason or with Jared at West Ottawa. I mean, it was it was a much easier start for me in the business than to have a season where you struggle and you kind of but then we did. I mean, I have to admit though. I mean, I have nothing. I love the girls. I'm still staying in touch with a number of the girls that I coached for those 2 years, but they just didn't win any games. So I think I went 1-19 and maybe 0-20 or something like that with the girls. So it was a struggle, but it wasn't as much that. It was much about being a varsity coach and about trying to build a program that way too. But it was a struggle for a while for the girls because they were super young. I mean, we were old for 1 year, and then I had the Rusticus girls, and they were great competitors, but we just didn't win much. And then Natalie Vanderveer was on that team too, and she ended up blowing her knee out and getting hurt, so she was probably the better player there of the group. And then so they struggled. Then I had the young kids after that. I had Bethany Carlson and some of the young girls. So we had Bethany was a freshman, I think, on the varsity girls team. So it was a struggle, but you take your lumps and you learn your lessons and you kind of build from there, and and so you keep just learning and learning as you go. And then obviously after Holland, we had some tough years though too. So after those guys left, and after that first year or two, we had some pretty lean years the next few years in there until we ended up with had this kid named Coriante de Berry all of a sudden shows up, and we got his head straightened around, and he figured out he wanted to be a basketball player, and after 8th grade, and and then he got going a little bit, and then we ended up obviously with coaching Trent, and he had some good athletes in that group with Corey Willis and Nathan Ricketts and Jake Helm and those guys. That was and then I had Dante Hawkins, and so those guys were pretty solid ball players.
Yeah, and you mentioned Trent, and again, when we were kind of looking back at some of the championships, Trent's sophomore year, you guys won the district championship, and then his senior year, you did win the conference championship as well. What was it like coaching your own son?
Well, it's I can't tell you I didn't enjoy it but I mean, it's funny thing is, it's just not coaching your son. I mean, you coach him all the time. I mean, you coach him at home. You coach him when he was in 8th grade. You coached him. I mean, we put together, we couldn't ever get enough kids to play at travel basketball at Holland. So what happened is we ended up getting some kids from West Ottawa one year, and then we took Trent and a couple of his buddies, and we put them all together on a team. Then another year, we took some kids from Holland Christian, and we brought them in, and we had the kids from Holland Christian kind of come with the Holland group, and then we kind of joined, and we played a couple AYBT tournaments and stuff like that. So you tried to cultivate, but in the other way, I mean, it's you have something, you have a dog in the fight because you want your son to improve and you want your son to be better and all that kind of stuff, and so it was always it was always in the back of our mind that he was going to eventually play for me. Eventually, when he was still, we were living on the north side and I was coaching on the south side. That was kind of a delicate situation there until we
Sure.
moved to Holland, and our daughter swam at Holland, so she had a really good career swimming at Holland, and and then Trent moved to Holland, and I still remember the time, and he probably remembers the time too. We're sitting in the car and we're driving down the road, and I said, "Dude, if you want to play for me," I said, "you're going to have to be exceptional. You're going to have to be really good because people aren't gonna be happy if you're playing and they think somebody else is better than you." So, and he, to his credit, he took that to heart, and he came in and worked. And when I came to the gym, he came in and he put the gun up and he
Yep.
shot on the gun, and his thing was obviously shooting the ball, and and he had a really solid career. He did a really nice job when he was a sophomore. We pulled him up as a sophomore. I mean, he wasn't he wasn't the best defender in the world, but he was a guy that you had to go out there and defend him in the corner. We were running with Taylor DeRue was a point guard at the time. We had Colin Meadowcroft, we had Carson Clark, we had Josh Weatherspoon, some of those dudes. So man, they were just pretty good, and they had all the parts filled. We ran some dribble drive motion, and they were nice. So they went into district, which was fun. That was the first taste of the old district after Coach Worley, and that was fun to get that back in there.
And it's so funny you bring up that conversation you had with Trent in the car that day, because when we had Trent on the podcast, he brought that exact same conversation up and said the same thing. He was like, okay, and from that point on, he obviously put in all the time.
He did.
All right, and then so Trent's senior year, you guys won the conference championship, and then now about how many more seasons were you at Holland until you moved back to the north side to take over West Ottawa?
Ooh, that was, let's see, Trent was a senior, then oh boy, then I probably had, I'm trying to remember how many other teams I had after that. I had Dante yet. I don't know if Dante was a sophomore, was my last year when Dante was a sophomore. I don't know if Dante played with Trent or not. I don't remember. I don't know. That's a tough one. It was a year or so after that.
A year or so after that? Okay.
Yeah. So then it was, Curt, you know that. I mean, that job's opened up 3 more times after the first time I told you about Coach Chapman getting the job, and then they end up with Coach Chapman for a while. Then I ended up, talking to them again in conversation, kind of off the record conversations, but they were, fishing a little bit, and then they end up, I think I interviewed again, and then I didn't get it again, and that's when I think Von Washington ended up getting the job, and then after that it was kind of quieted down. I'm trying to think in between there. They had Doug Amaral, then Jeff Van Vossen had the job, and so it was quite a few years. Then I stayed at Holland. I was at I think I coached varsity basketball at Holland for about 9 or 10 years. So I was a varsity coach there. So so by that time it got to be, it was not something I really thought about. So it was like whatever. They just keep doing what they're doing and keep hiring young guys, and that was the way they wanted to do stuff, and so that's up to them. So that was fine, and I was happy where I was, and things were going somewhat steady in Holland. I mean, there's obviously you run into, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm always a straight shooter, so you run into a new athletic director, which is perfectly fine. Which Mike Clark stepped down, or Brian Birch was gone, and Brett Roach was gone, and those guys that you knew for a while, and you get a new athletic director, and the parents think you got a new athletic director that they can start shaking the bushes a little bit and making things a little rougher on you, and so so pretty soon the love that you felt in the beginning is it was wearing a little thin. So there were some folks that didn't really care to have me be around very much longer. So when the West Ottawa job opened up, they were more than excited to take a guy that's had some success and won some games, and maybe been around a little bit, and and maybe give the old dog another chance and let him come back to his alma mater and coach again.
Well,
I
was gonna say the reason that kind of that interest was kind of it sounds like in the back of your head over the years, that being your alma mater, you
had a desire to go back and coach at your alma mater.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a chance, I mean, it wasn't. I love Holland. I mean, I love. I mean, I told you that too. I mean, I've seen you at games this winter, and I like sitting in the dome. I mean, it's a great place to watch a game. It's you see a lot of the friendly faces. I mean, it's you see the old Holland guys there. You can see the guys that you coach. Like I saw like Brandon and Tremel Hawkins and Pete Zesson and those guys. They all come up and talk to you and say hi, and and you get to Kyle Evansdale. I mean, I saw him. I mean, you see Andy Van Hecken. You see the old Van Hecken clan. You see Dan Van Hecken. You see yourself. You see Ryan Klingler. You see all those guys there, and it's like old home week. Sometimes you go there, but it's you always love going back to the dome and watching games. But yeah, so it's always been a friendly place. But yeah, West Ottawa's always been where I graduated from in high school, and I had a little passion for that. So, and I always wanted to see them. I always wanted them to succeed. I always wanted them to be really good. It ain't nothing. It ain't nothing against anybody else. I mean, everybody's tried and everybody's done some things, and and we've upset the West Ottawa a few times. Obviously, when they had some pretty strong players in their days. They did win a conference championship, I think, when they had Leonard Houston, but that was the kind of the weird OK Red, which was the Lakeshore and the Metro. So they, so it wasn't, it was weird. But anyway, but I had the one last opportunity. But I mean, I made sure, with that opportunity that I got the opportunity, but I made sure it was all right with my wife, obviously, Jeannie, and I made sure it was all right with my kids, with Trent and Randy. And so I made sure that they were all were they good with it, were they for it, were they thought what they thought about it, and they were all they all gave me the green light. Sure. And so I went over there not knowing what I was getting into, but I went in there knowing that I wanted to try to build a program, try to make them better than what they've ever have been, and and obviously I was very fortunate to have some really good players, but not knowing how that whole thing was going to shake down. I mean, it couldn't have ended any, it couldn't have gone any better at times. But we had some lean years in the beginning, but once we got cooking, we were pretty successful.
Yeah, no, and I remember that transition too. Being as a Holland alum and as a Coach Windemuller fan, obviously wanted you to continue coaching at Holland High School, but was aware a little bit what was going on and totally totally respected and even was happy for the decision you made to head on over to your alma mater at West Ottawa. And you mentioned going back now to the Dome this season for a few games, and you mentioned all the guys you see. I think that's that's really cool, and to see all these former players.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more of the Attack the Rack podcast. And welcome back to the Attack the Rack podcast. Real Estate Ryan has been in real estate for over 20 years and can help you with all your real estate needs. Realtor Ryan has helped me in my journey in learning about real estate, and he can do the same for you, whether you're looking to buy, sell, or just learn more about real estate in general. Ring Realtor Ryan.
I think there's some other connections too right now with like the current Holland team. You've got Joe Davilar, who played for you at Holland. His son is on the team. I know the Van Hecken boys, Jackson, Jacob, and Josiah. Dan graduated the year before their father, Dan. He graduated the year before you guys
Dan
came
was
on board.
An assistant with us too.
Him
and Joe were both
coaches with you.
Yeah, they were coaching with Coach Worley and I. Yep.
And actually, when Dan played at Holland, Coach Worley was his JV coach, so we did play for Coach Worley.
Yeah.
But like you see all these years later, now you're starting to see the and Derek Wolf, he has a son coming up, and you start now to see the kids of the players you coach, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's just like West Ottawa this past year. I coached Reed Reimick, and I coached his dad.
Oh, really?
His dad played JVs for me. So Chris played JVs for me. So so you see kind of that, you see the rollover. I know Brady Bosma, his dad played at, his dad coached at Jenison for a while, so you kind of know the connection a little bit with different kids and different players. But yeah, you end up with some dads and kids in there that are very interesting combination doing that. That's all. I mean, you coach way too long, or I don't know or you're really getting old, one or the other. So.
And too, you mentioned Joe and Dan, Joe Davila, Dan Van Hecken were assistant coaches with you guys. They were assistant coaches. This didn't even plan on bringing this up, but they were assistant coaches in one of the biggest wins in Holland High School history. When you guys were there, you and Coach Worley were there, upsetting #1 ranked Saginaw Arthur Hill, featuring Jason Richardson. I actually have the game film of that, and I actually do have that whole game on the YouTube channel if anyone wants to check it out. But what do you remember from that game?
Well, I remember that we put in the defense. We put in the kind of a special 11 defense. We put that in the lobby of the place we were staying, which was that 4-H lodge thing that was up in Traverse City. So we put this old new defense in there just for them, and we tried to fool them, and tried to make it work. Is that the Owen Handy year too?
Yeah, Owen Handy was a senior.
I love Owen Handy, but the dude tried to ruin the guy's career. He just took him out a couple times. But Owen loved to win too, So, but that was it was a really good game. I mean, Traverse City was always a great trip.
Yeah.
It was always something that even the parents look forward to and the kids look forward to. And it was, I never looked forward to sleeping in those crappy beds that they were, but, monitoring all your, the kids and their money
Gambling.
games, games,
I lost so much money up there. Well, what was a lot of money for a high school kid.
But those were great. Those were fun times. Those tournaments were really fun. I think the one year we went up there too. I think we played Mount Pleasant one year too, and I think I don't know if it was one of the Marleys was up there at the time too. So that was really good competition at that time.
Yeah, my junior year we played Notre Dame Harper Woods, and they had Greg Stempen, who was a D1 player. I think he played with Toledo maybe or Kent State, one of those MAC schools. But yeah, the Traverse City tournament, wow, that was so much fun. And that team that we're talking about right now, that was Mike Van Hecken, Chad Carlson, Tino Shepard, Landon Clark senior year, Derek Van Galder. That was a really good team. You guys were ranked in the top 5 a lot of that season, and kind of had an unfortunate situation in the district final and a controversial.
The goaltend. Yep, that was the hell no, we won't go. That time the student section was not going to leave.
Yeah,
those kids were pissed. Everybody's pissed.
Yes.
That was just that was very unfortunate. That team deserved to move on. The other team we played did not deserve it after the goaltend call and the goaltend non-call. So that was it made for a rough next week or two, because nobody was getting over it and everybody wanted to discuss it.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to replay it and everybody wanted to know who all the officials were. So it was not a good situation for a while there. But I guess everybody moved on and got past it, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was too bad though.
And again, so yeah, that was a really good team, one of the better teams certainly you guys had. Also, what was it, 2001 season, or around that time, you guys went 20-0. So a lot of great teams in that era.
Yeah, but then again, you look at the same thing. It's the same. It's sometimes and you talk about some of the success we've had either place.
Yeah.
But it's like you just gotta be lucky sometimes too. I mean, it's just unfortunate. The one year Benton Harbor, also 22-0 and whatever, and then 21-0, whatever they were, and we were 21 or 22-0 or whatever it was.
Right.
After you win your first district game, and then you gotta end up playing each other in a district final, and you both could have won a regional.
Oh yeah.
Each of you kind of won a regional and played each other in the quarterfinals or something else. That would have been a heck of a lot better. But you end up playing each other in a district, and that's the rough breaks. I mean, that's somewhat the PSL and some of those guys in Detroit area. That's what they run into every year too.
Yeah.
So it's someday I wish they would figure out how to seed the whole region. Would be kind of nice to see.
I actually was talking to one of the local coaches here earlier today, and he was sounding like that's there's a really good chance that in the near future they're going to start seeding more regionally.
That'd be nice. I mean, just seeing it from the standpoint of being at West Ottawa for the last 9 years, you keep playing this. You play your conference teams all the time. So I mean, if you're going to win a district, you got to beat Hudsonville, and you got to go beat. Like we won a district last year, so we had to beat. What did we play? We played Granville for the finals. We played Hudsonville for the semifinals, and then we end up playing. I'm trying to think who we played first.
In the regional?
No, we played in
the district.
In the first district game. I don't remember. Oh, Zeeland East.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like,
2 of your 3 games were against conference opponents.
Conference opponents. I mean, so the scouting report's out the window.
Yeah.
That's just, it is what it is. But it's just like one of those odd things. But it's like the year it's just you like to play somebody else and make somebody work for it a little more than pulling out the same scouting report, because you all know each other like the back of your hand. So
Right.
it's a little unfortunate that happens that way. I would like to see the region seeded, so it'd be nice if the best 4 teams get out of there somehow.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned 9 years at West Ottawa. Amongst those 9 years, 3 OK Red championships, 4 district titles, a regional title, and a state runner-up. In those 9 years, a lot of success. What was the state of West Ottawa basketball when you took over?
It was pretty average, put it that way. I guess the best way to say it. I think, I don't. It is what it is. I mean, it just was pretty average. I mean, it was maybe they were 500, 7 and something, 8 and something. They weren't doing a lot. It wasn't a school that was talked about their basketball, or the kids in their basketball program weren't out there. Besides, I mean, like I said, I mean, the guys, they had Jordan Myrick, and they had Leonard Houston, and that's about the only, for some odd reason, that's about the only 2 I can name that were good hoopers before those days. So, but and the only time they, when I was at Holland, they beat us in the dome one day, and it was Trent's senior year possibly, but they had 6 dudes on the floor to score a bucket one time to take the lead. So, so it's just, it's all that stupid shit you remember, but anyway, it was average, it was pretty average, and we were somewhat average when I took over. I mean, we had some young guys when I took over. We had some seniors we had quite a senior laden group when I took over. I mean, we had, and it was a rough group. It was a group that, I hate to say it, they got in some preseason trouble.
Yeah.
So I started the season, I think, with 3 or 4 or 5 of them suspended. So we were kind of behind the 8 ball already. But I think just the style and the kind of I don't know, maybe it's just the style and the old school. Some of the stuff I brought with me was maybe kind of what the doctor ordered a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of trim the fat a little bit and try to make things a little more. I don't know what, I can't speak for what it was before that, but it was, I always took we did the team shoes, and everybody looked the same, and it carried over from what we had at Holland. Yep. And it was, and we ran motion. It was equal opportunity, and the better players got to shoot the ball more, and and that kind of, it was, everybody kind of figured out their roles after a while, and we played multiple defenses, and not much pressure, but you played really solid defense. You play multiple defenses, and you try to run some motion offense, and you try to play as hard as you can play, and try to do things the smart way, and don't be a dummy, and don't. But I think the best part, I mean, the hard part is that you just make sure you don't run your mouth, and you make sure you let your play do the talking.
Yep.
And I think that kind of carried over. So we had some good groups in the beginning, and then it kind of started where I had a group of some guys that were really pretty hungry. It was like John Learmeyer and Ben Horner and Jared Miller, and those guys. They were a hungry group, and they really wanted to win. And that was the first conference think we ended up tying for conference championship because we kind of spit the bit down the stretch. But those guys were the hungry guys. Those guys were the ones that came in and did 4-man workouts all fall.
Yep.
Committed themselves to the weight room. They were. It wasn't like the kids before them didn't. It was just that these guys had been playing hoops for a while. You could tell they were AAU group, and they had some things going on, so they got cooking. So that was the first group that we were pretty successful with. And then I think I don't know if we were close to that time where we brought the sophomores in at that time when those guys were seniors.
Yeah.
I think we were. I think that's the time when we brought in, Zave and Ty and you had Jake at that time, and so we were very fortunate to have some ballers for about 4 or 5 years there after that. So it was good.
Yeah, and with that group that you're talking about, the young group, the sophomores that played that year, their senior year, what a season that was!
Well, it's unbelievable.
Take us through that. It ended up playing in the state finals at the Breslin Center.
That was awesome. It was you always go there as a coach for years, Coach Worley and Coach Clark, and we'd bring our kids and we'd all go to the state finals every year, and you all load up the car and you drive the state finals, and you sit there and you watch somebody else coach it, and you're sitting there going, someday that would be awesome, just to be someday to wear that little tag around your neck that you're out there, that you're on the floor and you're going to coach, and you just watch it, and you kind of in the back of your mind, obviously you're a little envious of other coaches that are out there, and some of the guys that are out there. I mean, obviously they always have talented teams. They always have the best talent. I mean, always the coach. It's the guys you got, and and they all these same guys just keep showing back up because they keep just reloading and they keep bringing back guys, and so there was never a lot of guys from a lot of teams from West Michigan that would come over there. I think they had the Zeeland East team that had been Dustin and those guys got over there.
Right.
There wasn't a ton of, get Ottawa Hills maybe was over there once in a while, and so in Rockford got there some years like around the 2000s or somewhere around there they got there too. So, but yeah, you just wonder. But it was just a kind of it was a great season because it was just those guys, the seniors, really could play. They were really competitive. They like to compete. We ended up doing a really nice job of scheduling, which we played some really good teams. We played the Catholic Centrals, and we played Flint Carmen Ainsworth, and we played some of the showcase games, which kind of get you kind of tournament ready, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean they were a great group. They were resilient. They battled all the time. They were and they just had multiple guys that could do some stuff. I mean, it wasn't you could shut one guy down and somebody else is going to step up, and so it was a great ride. I mean, the regional final game, you won't forget that because it's a overtime game, and I don't think we missed a free throw down the stretch, and so that was fun. And the district final game was pretty close too. I think it was with we played Jenison, I think, and that was against the Jacob Leaseth kid.
Yeah.
And he was tough to stop, man. He was good, and so he was tough for us to stop. But Ty, we ran a little play for Ty at the end, and he got an and one, and so that was nice to get that one. And then we kind of went over to play East Lansing or Lansing Eastern, and played in Lansing Eastern in that big barn, and that was fun. That was fun to win that one, and played against Brandon Johns, obviously, and he was tough to stop too. But we met the challenge again that night. We were tough, and then we end up going to the semis. And then one funny thing is, you laugh about stuff, but it's like there's games I remember, and there's games like the semifinal game. I don't have a lot of have a lot of memory of that game. It's just the weirdest thing, So it's just like, but that was a great game. Our kids played really well that day, and that was super fun. I mean, it's can't trade all that in, the big bus ride, and everybody's on board, and man, everybody's taking off of work, and everybody's going to the Breslin. I mean, the funny thing is, it was Lenny Padilla put out a thing today about it was 5 years ago today or whatever that it came out. Well, hey, get your memories on Facebook, and so my aunt and my cousins took a bunch of pictures. So we got pictures of us at the Breslin, and all my cousins are all there, and all the families there, and it's the whole north side of Holland was, I think, following that team, and so it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was disappointing the way it ended, because that and no matter whatever the score was or whatever it was a rough game in the first place. Obviously, Foster Loyer obviously had a weekend anyway. I mean, he had 40 something the day before, and he had 40 something against us. If you ask me, he played way too long in that game. But anyway, they took care of us pretty easily. But that was about the only game I can remember of that group since they were even before. I mean, I could not remember a game since that group was brought up as sophomores. That they kind of laid an egg.
Yeah.
So I, to their credit, man, any night that, no matter what night you thought it was going to be a rough night and you're heading over to Kentwood and it was going to be, it's crappy, it's snowy, it's cold, no one's going to be there because nobody cares. And then they show up and they just come out and they just play their kind of style, their ball, and they just go out and get it because they want to win and they do it. So, I mean, they were that kind of team. It was, high school kids, you always kind of peaks and valleys, and there was nights you worried about. This group didn't matter. They just met the challenge every night, and they wanted to win, and they took care of business. So it was that was about the only game that we didn't take care of business. But it was an absolute joy, and they were a great group to be around. And it changes your coaching style a little bit. You try to keep everybody healthy as long as you can. And that was a pretty healthy group. They stayed pretty much injury free. I think Zave had an injury, but other than that, he didn't have one at the end. But anyway, but it was it's obviously memorable, obviously, and it's cool. So it'll stay there forever because there's a big picture on the wall in the gym at West Ottawa that's got the pictures, and the mission was accomplished, obviously, and you wanted to get there, but it was cool to be there. So it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, you think thousands of coaches have coached in the state of Michigan, and very, very few have had that opportunity to know what that's like. So very, very cool.
Well, the worst part was that I was going to tell you that when Trent was coaching during college, he was assistant at a little Catholic school in Illinois, and I went and watched him coach in the state finals. So I took all kinds of crap from a bunch of coaches because they go, at least the kid makes it before the dad makes it, So Trent had a chance of being at the state finals of Illinois, so he got to coach in that game. So at least we're on the even keel now. He was in one state finals, and so was I. So we're even now on that
one. Any itch to get back into it? Whether at any role, not I'm not saying as a head coach, but
I mean, you watch games and I try not to overdo it. I think if you asked, I go back to Trent and Mason a little bit because I sat around Village Inn and talked hoops with those guys, and so, but it's like, you have a little, they don't want to overdo it because it sounds like the dad that was coaching his kid. Now it's the dad, the coach is coaching his coach's kid, So it's like you don't want to overdo it because you don't want to say too much, But there's some things you would like to get back someday maybe. It's it's hard. I miss the guys. I miss the part I miss the most was I miss the camaraderie with the coaches I was good friends with. So that's a hard part. I mean, Phil Visser at Caledonia, Kyle at Rockford. We have conversations during the year. Eric Elliott at Hudsonville. Those are the guys that've been around a long time. I mean, Jeff Anima, I've seen, see him once in a while. I mean, those guys have been the guys that I've been around. You see them in the summer, you see them through some other things, and so those are the things you miss about it. I mean, the new breed, the new young guy. Some of those dudes are pretty cool. Some of those guys are all right. Some of those guys, they got a lot to learn, and I hate to say that. I don't want to sound like old school and some crabby asshole guy.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Some crabby asshole guy that coached for 36 years, but some dudes just some guys just follow their butt in the butter, and other guys got to work for it, and so that's fine. If it's the situation you're in, that's the way it goes, But there's some, I don't know what capacity. I told somebody I should write a book. But I'm not gonna write a book because I don't know if I'm that smart.
Start a podcast.
That's smart, But there's things you know that you do that are kind of cool. I mean, I had a fellow coach of mine, that friend of mine, that won his district, and he calls on a Saturday morning and says, "Okay, you've been here before." He says, "What do I do?
Yeah.
Or how did you do it? Or what did you do? What did you do on Saturday? What did you do on Sunday? And it's like, so you sit there on the phone and you kind of go over and say, well, I pretty much probably nursed my hangover on on Saturday morning, because I was out celebrating after you win a district, so you're all excited about that, But then you're like going, okay, well, this is what we did, and don't overthink it, and just be, because it comes so fast. You don't get to really enjoy the district part. That's the weird part, is it's just it goes from winning Friday to playing Monday, so you got to do some work, and that's the best part. I mean, I can say about even the run we made, and even last year's run. We won a district last year, and we got to the regional finals last year. We had the guys in our staff were tremendous. I mean, Steve Edson and Barry DeGraff. Barry DeGraff came in. He already planned ahead, and we didn't plan on, obviously, we didn't go into the district planning to win the district.
Right.
And we ended up just playing our best basketball of the year through our district week and into the regionals, which was the best time to play your best basketball. But, we came out, and all of a sudden we win our district on Friday night, and Saturday morning we got scouting reports on Wyoming. And it's like, and so Barry's been watching some of Wyoming, and Steve has got on some of it. And so those guys were already pre-watching some of that stuff before, so you can't say enough about, I mean, even you talk about coaching staff and at the Holland level, and the Holland guys too, and coaching with Dan and Joe. I mean, you remember those days. Those days were so much fun, and those guys were a joy to have on staff. And we always had good staffs. I mean, Coach Worley always had good staff. We had good guys, fun guys that we all could get along. You could all go hang out on the weekend and still do some stuff on the weekend and not have any problems, and a lot of mutual respect out of everybody, which is really important for a basketball staff. I think the mutual respect part is key to having some good continuity in your program. But same thing at West Ottawa. When I got there, I mean, I took Ryan Klingler with me. That was one of my prerequisites when I was taking the job. I still remember I was driving to see my daughter in Chicago area, and then they offered me the job, and I wasn't sure I was going to take it yet, and I called Ryan, and he was out of coaching for a little bit, and I said, if I'm going, I said, you going with me? And so he was thinking about it and wasn't sure. So then he came over and coached some JVs for us at West Ottawa for the first few years. So he was a big help, doing that. And Steve Edson was a team player. I mean, Steve Edson's been at West Ottawa for forever.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
Forever, and and he's a great coach. He sees things the same way, runs the same stuff that we ran. I mean, that was just a gift right there to have him like that. And he was a team dude, and he said, I'll go coach freshmen then. So he coached freshmen, and Ryan coached JVs, and then I had Jim Ottoman coaching varsity with me, and he's pretty much the main reason I ended up going to West Ottawa, because he was the one that kind of got the ball rolling on that thing, and so anyway, so that's kind of how it all worked out. But the mutual respect on your staff, and respecting your coaches, and and now last year I had last couple of years I had Taylor DeRue over there, and Taylor played for me at Holland. Love Taylor, and does a great job with the kids, and he's a dependable guy, and he's always got the program at heart, so he was great to have on staff. Paul McNitt was another guy we always had on staff all the time. He was great. So I've been very fortunate to have really a lot of good dudes to coach with, so it was fun.
Yeah. So over the course of you kind of hinted at a couple things, but over the course of the 36 years you spent coaching high school basketball, how have you seen it change over the years?
Oh boy.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Let's go. I can't stand all the dribbling right now. I mean, I can't stand the shaking and the dribbling and all that stuff. I understand you got to build your skills, and you got to, and I love. I mean, I didn't even talk about how lucky we were to have. Like I've had very good point guards. I've been very fortunate to do that. I had Kobe Hagelin last 3 years and I had Blake Pedersen before that, and then I had Nick Wiermeyer and Zave, and those guys could all handle it, and they were all real good. And then, but like Chris Hagelin runs some of his own skills and drill stuff, and and runs his own clinics with Jordan Myrick, and I think they do a great job. But there's there's one thing to build your skills, and there's another way to know how to play the game.
Yeah.
And I understand there's doing that stuff, but shaking it and doing all this, the 6 dribbles before you shoot it or whatever, has never been my style. So I think that drives me crazy. Going to watch games, I see a lot of wasted dribbles. I see a lot of wasted. A lot of kids run the 3-point line instead of trying to run and go get try to run the lane and get a layup first and then go out to the 3-point line. I'd rather see that than have you run straight to the 3-point line and forfeit a chance of getting an easy bucket. I'm all for easy buckets. I don't care how it's done. Just get yourself something easy. So that's kind of interesting. I think the interesting part is sometimes I think the adapting to some of your talent is kind of weird. I mean, I think for some reason I've always adapted to the size of my kids or the talent level of my kids or it wasn't like this is what we're going to run always. This is what I mean, I think when I left Holland, I think we were running some ball screen motion because I had no center to speak of. That was at least not an actual center, but the last center I think we had was like Coriante, But then with Coriante's group, we ran a lot of dribble drive motion. Well, I had a couple of shooters, so that worked out well with Taylor's group that won that district. We ran dribble drive motion. Then after that, we ended up running some ball screen motion because we just didn't have any size to speak of. So then you kind of go do that. Well, then I got to West Ottawa, and it's about the same thing. We didn't have a lot of size, so we ran some dribble drive, we run some ball screen motion. So pretty soon it kind of evolved into, you try to fit the people. You just don't. It's like, I don't know. It's like football. Do you go run the spread offense when you don't have a quarterback that can throw?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a football guy, so I don't know that. But I mean, I'm not gonna go run motion when I got nobody that can read a screen or nobody that knows how to read any cuts. Then if I'm gonna teach you something, I'm gonna teach you something that you can have some success at. So I think that's weird. I think some guys come into places and they say, well, this is what the kind of guy I am. This is what coach I'm gonna do, and this is what you're gonna run, like it or not. And then the kids just don't fit into that system. But I mean, that's one of the things you see quite a bit too. But there's some, I don't know. I just like to see. Kids, you gotta spend time at it. I mean, you gotta spend some time. I mean, the lost art of just, there's always a team that's got a kid that can make a shot. Well, why can he make shots? Well, because he probably works at it. It's not. It's just like, you don't. Once in a while, you get lucky enough to have maybe 2 or 3 dudes that can make shots on your team. But nowadays it looks like everybody's got like one shooter, they got one banger, they got maybe a point guard. I remember seeing the team play this winter, and the point guard couldn't dribble his left hand. So it's just like, what? You're a point guard and you're a high school junior or senior and you can't dribble your left hand. So there's, I understand the problem with high school is you got to work with what you got. Some places can't recruit at least. So, but but you got to work with what you have. So you got to go with what you got. I understand that. But I think in the big picture, you gotta know it's coming.
Right.
As a player. But I mean, it's a tough situation. There's a lot of things I have issues with, but but I've always been. I mean, you can ask any of my players that play for me. I've always been kind of a perfectionist. I've always wanted the best and I always wanted to think like me, and and it's like, I don't know, that doesn't always happen, obviously, and I don't make a lot of people happy sometimes, because I'm not saying I'm always right, but I'm just saying at the time it's what I would prefer somebody to do, or prefer how somebody to act, or prefer the cut you're supposed to make, or you're supposed to curl cut or back cut, or when you make a better read or try to get open and make it a harder cut to get open instead of just making a lazy cut to get open, or sprint the floor instead of just jogging the floor. And so there's some of those things you just kind of watch, and you kind of think there's some things out there people could do a little better.
For sure.
But I don't know. Yeah, it's changed. It's changed a little bit, but but I don't know. I mean, I still think kids want to win. I think they still want to be successful. And so I think if you give them a a path and some focus and some thought, and they kind of believe in what you're doing, I think you're going to have something pretty nice. So.
All right. Well, Coach Windemuller, thank you so much for joining the program.
Well, thank you.
There's a way that I love to end each podcast. 3 questions to end the podcast.
I had to write these down because you asked me the question, and I'm not a movie person. Would you ask me the movie one?
Yeah.
All right. So you can ask me the movie one. And I'll give you.
And again, here's the great thing about this: there's no rules, so we can go wherever we want with it. But when I have a majority of the guests that have been on the show have been, the connection I have with the guests is basketball. So, the first 2 questions here are basketball related, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
The first question: your 5 favorite all-time basketball players, and I always have to say they don't have to have ever played in the NBA. That's not.
Well, I have to go NBA because I can't. Sure. If I can't give you high school because that's just not fair.
Yeah.
I've had no matter my first year with the Derek Wolf is one of my favorite dudes ever. But it's just because I think you got there and he was. And those, Derek's team those guys were hungry too. They didn't get a chance to play in that quarterfinal team. I mean, it was pretty much a set group of guys, which I can't fault the coaches for playing the guys they played because those guys were legit.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark Reed and Matt Haveman and the point guard, Dan Kuipers. I mean, those guys were hoopers. I mean, they were legit. They were a solid squad. So those guys that didn't get to play, were obviously not happy they didn't get to play, but they had something to prove, so that was cool. So you always have a special bond with some of those guys because they seem to be the ones that kind of just want to be around, that want to be part of with the coaches. They want to talk to the coaches that, and like a guy like, you always remember about Kling was a guy that never wanted to hang out with the kids up at Traverse City. He wanted to play euchre with the coaches, So I mean, it was those kind of guys, But like a kid like Jake Van Tubergen is, Jake's always in touch. We're always talking. We're always texting. I mean, the time difference is more difficult right now. It's in Portugal or whatever, but it's but he's just a fun-loving kid. A kid like Nolan Ecker that played with him. People don't remember Nolan Ecker. Nolan Ecker came out of the woodwork. Nobody never knew of the kid. The only thing you knew was his highlight tape as a sophomore.
Yes.
When he on the YouTube thing when he circled, it was hilarious. But then the kid became a baller.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just fun, fun like that. So there's a lot of those guys. So my favorites, I had to write down some NBA guys, which are obviously Larry Bird, and I got like Larry, Magic, Jordan. I was in that era, so those were my guys. Dr. J, Julius Erving was my guy. And George Gervin, the Iceman, he was awesome. David Thompson, those kind of guys. So that was kind of the era. I mean, in the day you had posters in your room, and Pistol Pete. You had Pistol Pete, and you had Dan Issel, and you had Dr. J, and you had George Gervin, and you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you had all those dudes. So those were my guys at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I always just want to make sure the guest knows that they don't have to have been in the NBA. Pretty much everyone names NBA players anyway.
Yep.
And then you said you're not much of a movie guy, but
I had to find some for you because I did watch some, but I just don't. I mean, but I have to tell you, I'm more of a reality TV type guy myself. So I watch, like, I hate to admit, my wife goes out of town. She goes to Florida, and I binge watch the last whole Netflix thing of the Formula One thing.
Oh yeah,
I'm hooked in the Formula One thing, so I'm not into I don't watch any of the races, but I just watch that whole thing. I just like the dynamics and the teams and the drivers it seems like the coaches and the players. I mean, that's what it seems like in some ways. It has some similarities to it, so you watch that, or you watch The Last Chance U. I like watching the golf the golf thing they got on YouTube,
was really good.
on Netflix right now, so that's really good. We like watching that, so it's like, so I watch that. But I mean, there's movies. I mean, obviously you got Hoosiers, and you got Space Jam, and you get Coach Carter, some of those. So I mean, those are always semi-pro. Those are
Yep.
the staples, you know.
Sure.
But I just watched the other day, Sunday. She wasn't back yet till Monday, so Sunday I watched the Redeem Team.
Yeah,
So
that
I
was
watched
really
that
good.
one. That was really
Oh,
good
that was
too.
really good.
Man, it made me almost
Yeah,
cry. You
yeah.
know, with Kobe on there.
Oh,
Kobe's on there, and he
what?
shows Kobe and his wife and
Yeah.
his daughters and stuff like that. It's like, holy crap! I'm gonna start crying because that's
Yeah.
super sad. You know,
Absolutely.
that he's gone.
And absolutely. And I remember one thing that really stood out to me watching that. I forget which player said it, but they were talking about how, you know, the team was out partying.
That was
You know,
Bosch.
was it Chris
I
Bosch?
think it was Chris Bosch.
And they came
Yep.
back to the hotel at like 4 in the morning, and they're walking in, and Kobe Bryant is walking out of the hotel to go work out.
Yep.
That was.
But the best part was that the whole team started getting up in the morning.
Yep.
At least a number of them started getting up in the morning
Yep.
and going to work out with Kobe. And Kobe would go lift and get to the gym and get shots up. And they decided they were all going to get up at that time and start going to work out with Kobe in the morning. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
I remember that part. Yeah.
Well, and I got to tell you one more thing that stood out when you were talking about reality TV show. I remember years ago, speaking of Coach Ryan Klingler, him and I stopped by your old house on the south side. I forget why we stopped by for something, and you know, we're about to leave, I think, and you start talking about Chrisley Knows Best.
Oh.
And we ended up sitting down and watching. Well, we were just gonna like check it out. We ended up sitting and probably watching 3 episodes with you, and then Ryan and I got hooked on that show.
Yeah, the Chrisleys. Yeah, the Chrisleys are great. Yeah. That's still. I mean, they're good. Poor guys in jail now, I think, or something like that.
Him and his wife.
Yeah.
Are headed
I didn't
there.
know they were in that big of trouble, but it was a funny show though.
It was
It
great.
was funny, but it's for some reason people laugh because I just I watched I watched some of that stuff, but I watched like Below Deck.
Yeah,
I watched that. I watched that. I watched the Summer House. I get caught into some of that stuff, and it just reels me in.
Yeah.
Like last night, I got home and I played. You wonder what I do now, and when I'm not coaching, I'm into golf.
Yeah.
So I'm a big golfer. So we play simulator golf with a bunch of couples on Wednesday nights. And so we did that, but I got home and the Vanderpump Rules was on last night, so I started watching that again. So it's like I get caught in all that stuff.
Well, you've kind of given one thing that that'll kind of answer this third and last question. Third question, I usually try to ask the guests, something more specific to some of their interests outside of basketball. Now that you have retired from coaching, what are a few things that you're able to do more now that you have more time on your hands? Things you enjoy doing.
It's about the same. I hate to say it. I'm a pretty boring person, or I'm a creature of habit, I guess. So, I work out more, but you probably never know it. But probably because I eat more, and I probably drink more now than I did before because I don't go to practice. Don't go to practice anymore. But so yeah, I mean, I play a little more golf in the summertime, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, when you don't have team camps and you don't have summer camp and stuff like that, then so I play a little more golf than I did before. I have a Peloton bike and a treadmill, so I ride the bike one day, I go treadmill the next day, so I do both. So I hit both of them, so I go back and forth on that a little bit. Like I said, went to a lot of games. I mean, not a lot of games, but I went to when they were home for the most part.
Yeah.
I will support other guys too. I mean, I watched South Christian play this year because Taylor Johnson's a friend of mine, so he's obviously in the semifinals now, so they're having a hell of a year. I went and watched his team play. I went to Black River.
Oh.
I did make a visit to Black River.
Sure.
And I got to watch Darion and Will coach over there. And Darion and Will both were 2 players of mine. So I got to watch those guys coach at Black River for a night. So that was it was fun, enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it was their team was a little overmatched by the team they were playing, but that's kind of at that level you kind of get that. And that was just a rough night for them. But they're doing some stuff and they're trying and they're working hard at it. And they got a little passion for the game.
Sure.
You can tell.
Absolutely,
so they're doing that too. So, but so that's kind of, I'm pretty boring. So that's kind of what I do. That's probably what I do. So, but I don't know. I'll never know if I go back again or not. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I can go back fully go back, but I don't know. I'd maybe be assistant someday,
Sure.
or maybe, I don't know. I would just be a person that stops in a couple days a week and gives you my 2 cents
Yeah.
worth, and don't blame me if you lose, because it's not my fault. So it's like one of those things you can just walk out of the gym and say whatever,
Yeah.
So, but I enjoy talking basketball, that for sure. I talk to you and I talk to Ryan, and anybody who comes into Chromatic, obviously, if they know anything about basketball, Kyle Lawton was in here today, and we talked about everything from hoops to girls soccer, so we talked about everything, so I enjoy talking about hoops, and I enjoy watching hoops. Obviously, your bracket's gone to crap, but other than that, I don't put a lot of weight in the bracket, because when my daughter and her boyfriend are both winning the family bracket, so and obviously, that doesn't mean much then. So
Yep.
But anyway, so yeah, we'll see what happens, what the future brings down the road. Who knows? We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining the program here. It's been a ton of fun. Again, an interview I was looking very much forward to. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Please subscribe to the Attack the Rack YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you are updated every time we post. Also, please like, comment, and share.